200 grams of raw reindeer liver. Warm, steaming, just extracted from the carcass. That is what separates a Chukchi from scurvy, frostbite, and slow death in the tundra. I stood and watched as a 7-year-old boy named Ripple bit off a piece of this liver as calmly as if it were an ordinary sausage sandwich. Blood ran down his chin. He was smiling, and I was trying not to faint. My name is... It does not matter what my name is. What matters is that I am a city person who decided to spend 3 weeks with Chukchi reindeer herders, with nomads who live the way their ancestors lived 1,000 years ago. They eat things that would give any dietitian a heart attack. They drink things that would make any gastroenterologist write a will. And yet they survive winters when the thermometer reads -55, without central heating, without pharmacies, without food delivery. Their food is not just nourishment. It is pharmaceutics, engineering, and philosophy in a single bowl. Every product serves a purpose. Every piece has meaning. And half of these products can kill an unprepared person. Literally. The Keenergen camp stands 200 kilometers from the nearest settlement. 8 yurangas scattered across the slope of a hill. A yuranga is a dwelling made of reindeer hides stretched over a frame of poles. From the outside, it looks like a giant brown mushroom that has sprouted right out of the snow. Inside, darkness and smell. A smell I spent 3 days getting used to. Smoked fat, rawhide, smoke, sweat, and something else. Something ancient and heavy. Then I understood. It was the smell of fermented meat, but more on that later. The first to greet me was Timnitagin. He is 63 years old. A face like a map of the tundra, all wrinkles and cracks. Hands like 2 pieces of tanned leather. He looked at me, at my down jacket, at my thermal boots, at my backpack full of energy bars, and he laughed. Not cruelly, more the way you laugh at a puppy seeing snow for the first time. Next to him stood his son, Val, 38 years old, silent, sinewy, with eyes that seemed to see through a blizzard. Val did not laugh. He simply nodded and walked toward the herd. He had work to do. He always had work to do. The first lesson began that same morning. Timnitagin held out a piece of something pale pink, the size of a palm. I sniffed it. It smelled of fish and sour milk at the same time. It turned out to be a piece of whale. Mantak, the skin and subcutaneous fat of a bowhead whale, cut into squares and slightly frozen. "Eat," said Timnitagin. I put the piece in my mouth. The texture was like chewing gum, only fattier. The taste. Imagine chewing an eraser soaked in fish oil and butter. Sounds disgusting. In reality, not that bad, if you do not think about it. Mantak is not a delicacy for tourists. It is an Arctic energy bomb. 100 grams contain as much vitamin C as a whole lemon. As much vitamin D as a city dweller gets in a week. And fats. Omega-3 fatty acids in concentrations that make any pharmacy supplement look like a pathetic imitation. 1 piece of mantak the size of my fist, and the body receives fuel for several hours of work at -40. But here is the interesting part. If you, a city dweller, eat that much animal fat in one sitting, your pancreas will revolt. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, possibly pancreatitis. The Chukchi eat this every day. Their bodies have adapted over thousands of years. Their enzyme systems work differently. Their livers process fats with an efficiency our organs cannot even dream of. I asked Timnitagin what would happen if I ate the way they do. He thought. Then he said one word. "You will die." He was not joking. I checked later. Studies show that the traditional Chukchi diet contains up to 400 grams of fat per day. For comparison, the recommended norm for an ordinary person is about 70 grams, almost 6 times the norm. And they are healthy. Their blood vessels are clean. Their cholesterol is fine. Cardiovascular diseases occur less frequently than among city dwellers. a paradox that scientists have been studying for decades. The second dish of the day was stroganina. Val went out to the sled and brought back a frozen fish. Nelma, about 70 centimeters long, hard as a log. He stood it upright, tail up, and began shaving it with a knife. Thin, almost transparent slices flew off the carcass like wood shavings. Each slice curled into a spiral. I took one, placed it on my tongue. It began to melt. And then I understood. It was delicious, truly delicious. Tender, slightly sweet fish that melts in your mouth like ice cream. Only fish ice cream, without sugar, without additives, just fish and frost. Stroganina is the perfect Arctic food. Freezing kills most parasites. It preserves all vitamins and trace elements. It requires no fire to prepare. You can eat it on the move, right in the tundra. A knife, a fish, 5 minutes, and lunch is ready. But there is a nuance. The temperature of the fish is -30 or lower. If you eat too quickly, you can get frostbite on the mucous membranes of your mouth and esophagus. The Chukchi eat stroganina in small pieces, letting each one partially thaw on the tongue. I did not know this. I shoved a bigger piece into my mouth, and I felt my palate burn with cold, as if I had licked a metal pole in the frost, only from the inside. Val looked at me. He said nothing, but in his eyes I read something like sympathy, or perhaps anticipation, because he knew that stroganina was still just the beginning. By the evening of the first day, Timnatagan decided it was time to introduce me to real food. He led me to the far Yoranga. There, in the corner, in a special pit covered with hides, lay something. I could smell it from 3 meters away. Sour, sharp, piercing right through you, as if someone had forgotten meat in the boot of a car for an entire summer. Only worse. It was kopalchen. Kopalchen. This is the dish where a serious conversation must begin. Because kopalchen can kill. Not in a figurative sense, in a literal one. For a person whose body is not prepared, kopalchen is poison. Botulinum toxin, cadaveric poison, products of anaerobic decomposition. Everything that would make a normal sanitary inspector lose consciousness. Kopalchen is prepared as follows. They take a walrus or a seal, whole. The carcass is placed in a pit, surrounded with stones and covered with earth, and left for several months, sometimes for half a year, sometimes for a year. The meat ferments, without access to air, without salt, without spices, just time and bacteria doing their work. The result? A mass of dark gray color with the consistency of soft cheese. The smell. I cannot describe the smell. Imagine the strongest cheese you have ever smelled, multiply by 20, add notes of ammonia, and a drop of something Swedish that turns your stomach. Timnatagan cut off a piece, put it in his mouth, chewed with an expression of complete bliss, like a gourmet in a Michelin-starred restaurant. Then he cut a piece for me. I looked at this piece. The piece looked at me. We both knew that nothing good would come of this encounter. I did not eat it. Not out of cowardice, out of self-preservation instinct. Timnatagan was not offended. He nodded. He understood. For an outsider, kopalchen is dangerous. There are known cases of visitors who tried kopalchen and ended up in intensive care. Several people died. Botulism is no joke. But for the Chukchi, it is safe food. Their intestinal microflora, shaped over generations, handles what would kill us. Their stomach acid has a different composition. Their immune systems are familiar with these bacteria. They grew up on this. Their mothers ate it while pregnant. Their children try it from infancy, a tiny piece at a time, gradually training the body. This is not the dirty food of savages. It is millennia-old biotechnology. Fermentation preserves calories for months without a refrigerator. It breaks down the tough fibers of marine mammal meat. It creates a unique set of amino acids and vitamins. In conditions where there are no vegetables, fruits, or grains, kopalchen provides the body with what is impossible to obtain from fresh meat. Night in the Yaranga. -38 outside. Inside, in the sleeping compartment, about +5. The compartment is a small tent inside the Yaranga, sewn from reindeer hides with the fur facing inward. You crawl in, and the warmth of bodies heats the air. Cramped, smelly, but warm. Next to me slept Ripple, that same boy with the reindeer liver. In his sleep, he smacked his lips. He was probably dreaming about food. I was dreaming about food too. Only in my dream it was pizza, delivered to a warm apartment. The morning of the second day began with the slaughter of a reindeer. Val selected a young male from the herd. It stood calmly, sensing no danger. Val approached, placed his hand on its neck, stroked it, then in one motion drove the knife precisely between the cervical vertebrae. The reindeer fell instantly, without a sound, without convulsions. A clean, instantaneous death. I have seen livestock slaughtered at abattoirs, on video. There is noise, stress, a conveyor belt. Here, silence, respect, gratitude. Val stood over the reindeer and was silent for several seconds. It was not a ritual, or perhaps it was a ritual so ancient that it had simply become part of the gesture. And then began what made the journey to the edge of the earth worthwhile. The butchering and the feast. Val opened the reindeer's belly with one long cut. Steam hit my face, warm, with the metallic smell of blood and something grassy. The innards of a reindeer, an entire universe that a city person never sees. We buy meat in plastic trays. Neat cuts with no hint that this was a living creature. Here, everything is honest. Here you see every organ, every sinew, every vessel. The liver was taken out first. Dark burgundy, glistening, the size of both my palms. Timnitagin cut it into pieces and handed them out to everyone. Everyone, including the children. Including me. "Eat now," he said, "while it is warm." I ate. Warm reindeer liver tastes like nothing I have ever tried. Soft, slightly sweet, with a light bitterness, and an aftertaste, metallic, bloody, wild, as if you are drinking the tundra itself. Raw liver from a freshly slaughtered reindeer is an Arctic multivitamin. Vitamin A, B vitamins, iron in an easily absorbable form, copper, folic acid. One piece replaces a handful of pharmacy tablets. The Chukchi knew this long before science even learned the word vitamin. But that is not all. Timnitagin pulled the stomach out of the reindeer, a heavy, distended sack. He cut it open. Inside, a half-digested mass of moss and lichen. A greenish-brown mush, steaming and giving off a sour smell. This is called refuel. Timnitagin scooped some up with his hand and began eating. With pleasure. Like yogurt. I watched. The contents of a reindeer's stomach. Half-digested moss. This was food. Refuel is the only way to obtain plant vitamins in the tundra during winter. The reindeer eats moss and lichen. Its stomach partially digests them, breaking down cellulose that the human stomach cannot digest. The result is a kind of fermented plant product, processed by the reindeer's gastric enzymes. Vitamin C, trace elements, fiber, everything that meat lacks. I tried it. I closed my eyes. Sour, grassy, with a hint of something for which I have no words. Not disgusting, but not something I would order in a restaurant either. Although, come to think of it, trendy restaurants serve fermented products for outrageous prices. Kimchi, kombucha, miso. Refuel is simply a more honest version of the same principle. Fermentation. Only the fermenter is a living reindeer. Blood. It was collected in a special vessel made from a reindeer's stomach. Warm, dark, thick. They drank it. Everyone drank it. Little Ripple drank, and dark mustaches remained above his upper lip. He licked his lips and laughed. Reindeer blood contains hemoglobin, which when consumed raw is absorbed almost completely. iron, protein, minerals. In conditions where anemia can kill faster than frost, fresh blood is medicine. But for an unaccustomed stomach, it is a direct path to vomiting and digestive upset. Val worked on the carcass methodically. Each organ was extracted in a specific order: kidneys, heart, lungs, intestines. Nothing was thrown away. The intestines were rinsed with snow and set aside. They would later be used as casing for blood sausage. Fat was cut off in slabs and stored separately. Bone marrow, a delicacy, would be retrieved later when the bones had frozen and could be split open. I stood nearby and felt useless, like a calculator on a desert island. Supposedly a complex device, yet utterly pointless. They moved in sync, without words. Val cut. Timnitagan sorted. The women carried pieces to the Orangas. Even Ripple helped, hauling small pieces, handing over knives. Everyone knew their role. The hide was removed whole, in one piece. This is a skill that takes years to learn. One wrong cut, and the hide is ruined. And a reindeer hide is not just material for clothing. It is life. From it they will sew a kuklanka, trousers, boots, covering for the oranga, sleeping bags, bedding. Every square centimeter counts. By midday, nothing remained of the reindeer. Absolutely nothing. Even the hooves were taken. Glue would be rendered from them. The antlers would become knife handles. The sinews would be dried and used as thread for sewing.
Thread made from reindeer sinew is stronger than any synthetic fiber, and it does not let water through. When a Chukchi woman sews footwear with reindeer sinew, every stitch is watertight. No modern footwear manufacturer can replicate this. I was given bone marrow to try. Val split the femur with a single blow of the butt of his knife. Inside, a yellowish, oily mass. I scooped some with my finger. It tasted like the most delicate butter I had ever tried, with a slight meaty undertone. It was genuinely delicious, without reservations. Bone marrow is that rare dish of Arctic cuisine that a city person can appreciate immediately. Bone marrow contains fatty acids, collagen, glycine, and other substances that modern medicine is only beginning to study. The Chukchi have been eating it for thousands of years. They do not know the word collagen, but their joints work at -50, while my knees give out at -20. The evening of the second day, the women are preparing vilmukan. It is a soup. Although the word soup does not convey the essence, it is more of a thick stew of meat, blood, fat, and innards. In a large pot over the fire, a dark liquid bubbles. Chunks of meat rise and sink. Fat floats on the surface in iridescent patches. The smell is thick, heavy, enveloping. It smells of smoke and meat, and something else that has no name in my vocabulary of smells. Val's wife, Tainina, stirred the pot with a stick made from reindeer bone. She added a handful of something. I looked closer. They were roots of some plant. Then another handful, dried berries, cloudberries. Even in this harsh world, there is a place for berries. In summer, the women gather cloudberries, bog bilberries, and crowberries, and dry them in the wind. In winter, these berries are the only reminder that summer exists. I was poured vilmukan into a wooden bowl. I took a sip. Fatty, very fatty. A meat broth of such richness that the spoon nearly stands upright. But the taste, deep, complex, multi-layered, as if the entire tundra had been gathered into a single bowl. Meat, herbs, wind, cold, smoke, all of it had somehow become liquid. After 2 bowls, I felt heat, from within, as if someone had switched on a heater inside my stomach. -35 outside and I was warm. That is what all this fat is for. It is not food, it is fuel. A biological furnace that runs for hours. The third day brought a new discovery. Tea. But not the tea you are imagining. Chukchi tea is a story unto itself. Into boiling water, a handful of tea leaves is thrown. Real black tea, brought from the settlement. Then reindeer fat is added. Then salt.
then sometimes blood. The result is a drink that in consistency is closer to broth than to tea. In color, dark brown with greasy swirls. In taste, it was the strangest drink of my life. Salty, fatty, with a hint of tea somewhere in the background, as if someone had made broth and accidentally dropped a tea bag into it. I took 2 sips and realized my stomach was voting against it. Tim the Taggin drank 3 cups in a row, wiped his lips with the sleeve of his kuklanka, and said the tea was weak today. This drink is not a whim. It is an engineering solution. In Arctic cold, the body loses calories at an incredible rate. Ordinary tea will warm you for 10 minutes. Tea with fat and salt for several hours. Fat slows down cooling. Salt helps retain water in the body, and tea is simply a pleasant addition for flavor. Function over form. Always. On the 4th day, I saw something my brain refused to believe my eyes were seeing. Sourheads. Fermented fish heads. They are prepared as follows. Heads of salmon species are taken, chum, pink, and sockeye salmon. They are placed in a pit, layered with leaves and grass, covered with earth, left for several weeks. The fish heads ferment in the ground. They soften. They turn into something between a pâté and a jelly. Tim the Taggin pulled out one such head.
It was gray-green in color.
Soft, like an overripe avocado. He broke it in half. Inside, a porridge-like mass. He scooped some with his finger and put it in his mouth.
Yes, we needed that.
Try the eye, he said. The most delicious part. The eye of a fish, fermented. I looked at this eye. It was cloudy and gelatinous. I picked it up with 2 fingers, put it in my mouth, crushed it with my tongue.
Here, taste the eye.
An explosion of flavor. Sour, fishy, with a hint of something mushroomy. The texture, like very soft jelly. And honestly, not horrible. Strange, unfamiliar, but not horrible. Sour heads are yet another way to preserve fish without salt and without a refrigerator. Fermentation breaks down proteins into amino acids that are more easily absorbed. Fish brain contains fatty acids essential for the functioning of the human brain. The eyes, pure collagen and vitamin A. Every part of the head is a separate nutritional supplement. But, for an unprepared person, sour heads are Russian roulette.
If the fermentation process went wrong, if the wrong bacteria got in, if the temperature was off, the product can become fatally dangerous. The Chukchi determine quality by smell and color. They sense the difference between proper and improper fermentation as easily as you distinguish fresh bread from moldy bread. For them, it is obvious. For us, a lottery. The 5th day, I began to notice what I had not seen before, the eating pattern. The Chukchi do not eat 3 times a day. They eat when there is food, sometimes twice, sometimes 5 times, sometimes once, but a lot. Their bodies are adapted to irregular eating. They can consume a kilogram of meat in one sitting and then not eat for half a day, or chew dried meat in small amounts throughout the entire day on the move while working with the herd. Yukola, dried meat or fish, an Arctic energy bar. Strips of meat or fish dried in the wind until they reach the consistency of a plank, hard as a boot sole. I tried to bite off a piece and nearly broke a tooth. Val looked at me and demonstrated. Do not bite. Cut a small piece with a knife. Place it behind your cheek. Wait. Saliva will soften it. Chew slowly. I tried. After a minute, the piece of Yukola became soft and tasty. A concentrated, meaty flavor, like a bouillon cube, only natural. 1 piece, and the feeling of hunger retreats for an hour. Yukola keeps for months without any special conditions. It does not spoil in the frost. It does not spoil during a thaw. It weighs 5 times less than fresh meat, the perfect trail food. Modern producers of dried meat spend millions developing technologies. The Chukchi solved this problem thousands of years ago. Wind and time. Nothing more is needed.
On the 6th day, I fell ill. Not from the food, from the cold, or from everything at once. Chills, headache, weakness. I lay in the sleeping compartment and felt like the most pathetic creature in the tundra. Tainina brought me a drink.
A hot decoction of some herbs and roots. Bitter, smelling of pine needles and earth. I drank it. Within an hour, the chills passed. Within 2, I could already sit up.
What was that? I asked. Tainina listed the ingredients. Rhodiola rosea root, shoots of dwarf birch, some lichens whose names I did not remember. Rhodiola rosea, by the way, is an adaptogen that is now sold in pharmacies around the world, in capsules with a pretty label for considerable money. Tainina gathers it in summer on the slopes of the hills, for free. Chukchi medicine is not shamanic dances with a tambourine, although dances with a tambourine do happen too. It is practical pharmacology based on millennia of experience. They know which plant reduces fever, which fat treats frostbite, which organ of the reindeer helps with which ailment. Liver for weakness, kidneys for swelling, blood for anemia, fat for frostbite, applied externally. Every food product simultaneously serves as medicine. 7th day.
I was allowed to help with the slaughter. More precisely, I was allowed to stand nearby and hand over knives. This was already a promotion. Before that, I had only been trusted to haul snow for melting. This time they were slaughtering an old Vazhenka. That is what they call a female reindeer. She was limping and could not keep up with the herd. Val did everything just as quickly and quietly as the first time. One movement. Silence. But then something happened that I did not expect. Timnitagan opened the reindeer's chest cavity, removed the heart, and cut it in half. Inside, dark blood. He brought half the heart to his lips and drank the blood as if from a cup. Then he held out the other half to me. I stood there with half a reindeer heart in my hands. Warm. Pulsating. No longer pulsating. But the sensation was exactly like that. I brought it to my lips. The blood was warm and salty, thick, like jelly. I took a sip. Then another. And I realized I had crossed some kind of boundary. Not a physical one. A mental one. The boundary between observer and participant. Timnitagan nodded. For the first time in a week, I saw something resembling approval in his eyes. The 8th and 9th days merged into one. Migration. The herd was moving south toward the winter pastures. We followed it. The Yarangas were dismantled in 2 hours. All the belongings, including poles, hides, kettles, clothing, and food supplies, were loaded onto sleds. 12 sleds harnessed a reindeer. The caravan stretched out for half a kilometer. I walked on foot. Everyone walked on foot. The sleds are for cargo, not for people. 20 kilometers across the tundra, without a road, through snow that in places reached up to the knee. Wind in your face, temperature -32. Eating on the move, Yukola and frozen chunks of fat. Val cut me a piece of visceral lard, white, hard, like a candle. I chewed it as I walked. The fat melted in my mouth and flowed down my throat. 10 minutes later, I felt warmer. My feet stopped freezing. It worked. Like gasoline in an engine. Pour in the fuel, keep going. At the rest stop, Tainina prepared something new. Vervier. It is a dish made from reindeer fat mixed with berries and roots. The fat is melted, cloudberries and roots are added. Everything is stirred together and left to set in the frost. The result is something like Arctic pemmican, a dense, high-calorie, slightly sweet bar. It tastes as if someone mixed butter with jam and froze it. Vervier is festive food. It is not prepared every day. Tainina made it specially for the migration. Because migration is hard work, and people deserve something special. Even in the tundra, even at -32, people do not just want to eat. They want to enjoy their food. That is what makes them human. 10th day, new campsite. The Yarangas are assembled. The herd is grazing on fresh pastures. Evening, a kettle over the fire. Meat is boiling in the kettle. Ordinary boiled meat. Without spices, without salt, without anything. Just meat and water. I sat by the fire and ate this meat. With my hands. Fat ran down my fingers. The broth burned my lips. Timna Tagin sat beside me and told a story. I understood every other word, but I grasped the gist. He was telling about a year of famine. When the herd was caught in an ice storm, the reindeer could not reach the lichen beneath the crust of ice. They died by the dozens. People ate hides. They boiled harness straps. They chewed bones that had already been chewed twice. That year, Timna Tagin said, we learned the value of every piece. He fell silent. The fire crackled. The wind howled outside. Ripple slept, curled up in a ball beside his grandfather. Val was mending the harness. Tanina was breastfeeding the youngest child. An ordinary evening. An ordinary life. I spent another 11 days with them. I ate raw fish and boiled meat.
I drank fatty tea. I chewed yukola on the move. I learned to slice stroganina into thin slivers. I learned to tell by smell whether the broth was ready. I did not learn to drink blood without an inner shudder. I did not try kopalhen. I have no regrets. On the last day, Timna Tagin gave me a piece of yukola. He wrapped it in a cloth and tucked it into my backpack, right next to the energy bars that I never opened. Not a single one. In 3 weeks. Their food can kill you. This is not a metaphor. Kopalhen, raw blood, fermented heads, 400 grams of fat a day. For our bodies, this is poison. For them, it is life. The only possible life on the edge of the world, where winter lasts 9 months and the nearest store is 200 kilometers away across roadless terrain. They did not choose this diet. This diet chose them. Thousands of years of natural selection. Those who could not digest raw fat died. Those who could not eat fermented meat died.
Those who survived passed their genes on to their children. And here they are, eating what would kill us, and living in a way we could not endure for a single day. I returned to the city. I opened the refrigerator. Yogurt with bifidobacteria, avocado, chicken breast in vacuum packaging, oat milk, everything sterile, pasteurized, certified, everything safe. I closed the refrigerator. I took Timnetigen's yukola out of my backpack. I cut off a small piece. I tucked it behind my cheek. I closed my eyes. Tundra, wind, the smell of smoke, the crunch of snow, warm liver, Ripple's laughter, Val's silence, Timnetigen's wrinkles. The piece of yukola melted on my tongue, and I knew it was the most honest food I had ever tasted. If you enjoyed this journey to the edge of the earth, subscribe to the channel, leave a like. Write in the comments which of these dishes you would dare to try. Kopalhen does not count. I did not dare either. There are many more stories ahead about people who live in ways we have long forgotten or never knew.